In the late 1800s, America was a nation divided not just by geographers, but by class and power. The roaring industrial age was in full swing. In the East, giant factories churned steel and smoke, ruled by millionaires like Andrew Carnegie. To keep their fortunes, these titans crushed workers' unions with iron fists and hired private armies. Far to the west, the battle was different, but just as brutal. Born and raised in Texas, Nate was a skilled cowboy and rancher who moved to Johnson County, Wyoming, in the 1870s. He built a life and a herd of over 200 cattle. They called themselves regulators, but to the people of Johnson County, they were invaders and assassins. But more than that, he became a symbol of resistance for the small homesteaders who refused to be bullied. The invaders cut the telegraph lines to stop news from reaching the town and silently closed in. Nate and his friend Nick Ray sensed danger and prepared for the worst. Suddenly, gunfire shattered the night. Their mission was clear: wipe out the homesteaders and seize the control of the county. "One looks like Frank Canton," he wrote, naming one of the Barons' hired gunmen. Though alone, he knew he was part of a bigger fight, a fight for justice, for the future of Wyoming's homesteaders. Wyoming had just been admitted as the 44th state in 1890, with its capital at Cheyenne. Despite facing 50 enemies, he shot 3 attackers and held them off for hours while bullets tore through walls and glass. Nate did something extraordinary. He started writing a diary chronicling every moment of the brutal siege. The attackers feared reinforcements and knew they had to finish Nate quickly. So they made a deadly list of 70 names, with Nate Champion at the top. It was a message meant to terrorize, to silence anyone who dared oppose the cattle barons. Justice isn't given freely. It must be fought for, even when the price is life itself. But beneath the surface of this new state, a hidden war raged. The real rulers were the cattle barons, wealthy men who owned vast herds and even vaster political power. Flames licked the walls, smoke filled the air, and bullets rained down like hail. But Nate kept writing. He refused to surrender. They controlled the government, the courts, and the law enforcement. Their interests came first, and anyone who stood in their way was considered an enemy. With gunfire all around, Nate made a desperate break for it, running toward a ravine, trying to escape the deadly trap. The cattle barons were ruthless. They saw homesteaders, small farmers, and ranchers trying to carve out a life on the frontier as obstacles. These homesteaders fenced land to protect their cattle and crops. But to the barons, this was theft. Tensions grew, and violence became inevitable. Nate, Champion's stand, was a symbol of courage against impossible odds, a story of sacrifice that echoes through history. Among those targeted by the cattle barons was a man named Nate Champion. The cattle barons saw Nate as a threat, the kind of man who could unite the homesteaders and challenge their control. To enforce their plan, the Stock Growers Association hired 25 gunmen from Texas. Hardened, dangerous men promised $5 a day and $50 for every homesteader they killed. In April 1892, this private army traveled by special train, armed with rifles, horses, wagons full of ammunition, and even dynamite. On the night of April 8th, they quietly surrounded the KC Ranch, where Nate Champion was staying with a few friends. 2 men left the ranch for water but never returned. Outnumbered, trapped inside a small cabin, Nate Champion fought with every ounce of courage he had. "I see 12 or 15 men." Nate's words revealed his resolve. As the night dragged on, the attackers set fire to the cabin. At some point, a friend managed to ride out to Buffalo, Wyoming, to get help. They pushed a burning wagon towards the cabin, trying to force Nate out. But he was relentless. But the odds were overwhelming. Surrounded and outgunned, Nate Champion was gunned down in a hail of bullets. His death was swift but legendary. Afterward, Frank Canton found Nate's diary, tore out a page, and left a warning note pinned to Nate's body. The Johnson County War was more than a land dispute. It was a ruthless battle between the powerful elite and the ordinary people trying to live honest lives. His fight reminds us that sometimes